These designations are critical tools that allow us to expand our operational capacity to safeguard our communities and respond effectively to any unrest or unlawful activity. Let me explain for the public what all these means in practical terms. When we declare a tactical alert, we're activating a department-wide operational posture that enables us to reallocate officers rapidly, hold over shifts as needed, and prioritize major incidents. Officers assigned to the field remain in their areas unless they're reassigned. Activities are narrowed to police work of significance or major importance, and officers who are able to return to the field in their areas of assignment. We also notify all relevant command staff, including my office, the Office of Operations, Emergency Operations Division, in order to ensure seamless communication and coordination. In response to current events, we've also implemented partial mobilization of the department, which means we've extended watch hours, deferred days off for some personnel, and alerted off-duty officers to be ready for deployment. Our ability to scale up quickly is essential during this kind of fluid and unpredictable situation. We're deeply appreciative of the assistance we've received through the California Mutual Aid System, with officers and deputies from across Southern California already on the ground in Los Angeles supporting our efforts. We're also aware of reports that the President intends or has deployed U.S. Marines to Los Angeles. The introduction of federal military personnel without direct coordination creates logistical challenges and risks confusion during critical incidents. Los Angeles Police Department, alongside our mutual aid partners, have decades of experience managing large-scale public demonstrations, and we remain confident in our ability to be able to do so professionally and effectively. We urge full transparency and communication across all levels of government. Our priority is simple: keep both the public and law enforcement officers safe and to maintain order. To the public, we fully support your right to peacefully protest, but let me be absolutely clear. Those who choose to incite violence, engage in vandalism or graffiti, or attack officers will be arrested. There is no tolerance for criminal activity under the guise of protest. And many ask, not a lot of people, relatively speaking, have been arrested during this incident. Well, I would say that I wouldn't argue with you on that, but many more will be arrested as the investigation continues. There will be many more subsequent arrests. Finally, I want to offer my deep gratitude to the men and women of the LAPD and all of our partner agencies who are out there standing side by side. They're working long hours under intense pressure, and what I've seen as professionalism, courage, and commitment to this city has never been more evident than in the past couple of days. Thank you all very much.
Buenas tardes y gracias al alcalde Bass de la ciudad de Los Ángeles. Desde esta tarde el Departamento de Los Ángeles está en alerta táctica y movilizamos a todos los oficiales en el departamento. Estos pasos son para designar áreas criticales y nos da la libertad de expandir nuestras capacidades para permanecer la ciudad segura y todas las comunidades y a responder a todas las comunidades en la ciudad de Los Ángeles. Ahorita todos los que estamos viendo es que todo está sano, pero estamos listos a recibir o a ir a responder a cualquier de disturbios o ocasiones ilegales. Cuando declaramos una alerta táctica, activamos el entero departamento y podemos movilizar a incidentes mayores. Los oficiales patrullan sus áreas y se quedan en sus áreas hasta que los resignamos a los disturbios. Las actividades de patrulla son menos y todos los oficiales se quedan en sus áreas por si hay emergencias en las comunidades. También todos los operativos están comunicados con todos los oficiales de personal. Esto quiere decir que no tomamos días de descanso y los oficiales pueden trabajar hasta 18 horas diarias. Esto es para que el departamento esté listo a situaciones que no podemos predecir. Les agradecemos a toda la asistencia a todos los departamentos de policía del sur de California que están aquí ayudándonos en la ciudad. Los oficiales y los deputies están en la ciudad de Los Ángeles. Ahorita tenemos más de 48 oficiales de otras ciudades y 494 oficiales del California Highway Patrol. También tenemos reportes que el presidente va a mandar a 700 Marines y la Marina va a cuidar a edificios federales entre la ciudad. La instrucción de la militar federal ahorita causa un poco de confuso con lo que estamos haciendo, pero tenemos todos los oficiales en la ciudad de Los Ángeles que tenemos muchas décadas de experiencia con estas demostraciones y tenemos sistemas profesionales para poder dejar la ciudad en buen orden. Vamos a urgir que seamos transparentes y comunicamos con todas nuestras comunidades y las oficiales del gobierno. Al público los apoyamos y completamente tienen el derecho de protestar. Y es su derecho de protestar, pero también sabemos que hay gente que viene a causar solo vandalismos y crímenes, y a esa gente los vamos a arrestar. No vamos a tolerar actividades criminales que ocultan como protesto civil. Finalmente, les quiero ofrecer mis gracias a todas las mujeres y los hombres del Departamento de Policía y todos los departamentos que están aquí ayudándonos en nuestra ciudad. Gracias por su dedicación y su ayuda profesional. Y les vamos a seguir dando información en inglés y en español como viene. Gracias.
It was Commander Herman Hurtado, who is in our Professional Standards Bureau. I'm also joined by Commander Ryan Whiteman, who usually works Operations South Bureau, but during this incident is the Day Watch Incident Commander. So I'll take any questions you have. If they're detailed questions, Commander Whiteman would probably be better able to answer those.
Chief, how does the mobilization that might be coming affect what you guys are trying to do on the ground, and what is your biggest concern with that?
Yeah, the mobilization is what we do internally to be able to get more officers out there. We had declared that earlier, and now we'll have the ability to have roughly 400 additional officers deployed to the field.
Are you concerned with the federal mobilization? I mean, the National Guard and the Marines possibly coming this way?
Yeah, when I look at this, and my assessment may not be accurate based on this thing's continuously churning, but I see two parallel tracks that don't work together, if you will. We're dealing with the issues on the street that you see every day. We deal with that with LAPD resources. When we need additional resources, then we reach out to the sheriff, who brings in mutual aid. We have 14 different agencies working with us for that purpose. And then only if we weren't able to continue to deal with that and needed additional help would we reach out to the sheriff, who would then request National Guard from the governor. So that's one line. The other part then is the National Guard were federalized by the president to support federal agents who are working on behalf of ICE to do their operation. The Marines were brought in then today, evidently, to join the Army National Guard in doing what their main mission has been identified as, which is the protection of federal employees and federal property.
Do you feel that incites those? Do you feel that makes it any different on the streets?
You know, I think everybody, it's a very emotional topic, absolutely. You know, could I quantify what that is? I think it has certainly heightened everybody's level of awareness and certainly anxiety, but to be able to quantify that, I wouldn't.
Chief, how are you
We'll take two
avoiding
more questions, and then the chief has to step out, but he'll come back.
I'll be back.
How are you avoiding less lethal weapons being used on people who are merely there in the way, potentially? Because it doesn't seem like everyone that's being hit and is being attacked, including press. I don't know, like it doesn't really make any sense that people are just being shot at.
Yeah.
Can you
Sure.
explain how you minimize or at least just not do that?
Yeah, we minimize it through training, through the equipment we use. It is a target-specific munition. That's not to say that it always hits the intended target, particularly in a dynamic situation. I know that the situation you're referring to with the member of the media, we saw that. We're very concerned about that, and we're looking into that.
But the horse trampling the horse.
Yeah, we're also aware of that, and we're looking at that as well.
Chief, go ahead, Jeff, go ahead, and then Mary Beth, and then he's gonna come back,
If
guys.
I may. You know, all of the streets surrounding the federal building complex, Los Angeles, Temple, Aliso, Alameda, they've all been cleared. You pushed the crowd away from them.
Right.
I know you can't talk about all of your tactics, but in terms of the benchmarks that you want to hit tonight, are you moving people away from the freeway as well by clearing out those streets and moving them towards the west?
Yeah, we're trying to move them away from wherever the threat is. So if there are people assaulting officers, which is often the reason they're taking rocks or bottles or pieces of concrete, then they will attempt to disperse that crowd so that they're not enabled to continue to do that, and move them out. If they can target individuals who've been the ones who are the aggressors, who are throwing the rocks, and they can safely go in and arrest those individuals, they will. Some of those will be arrested later, and after having been identified. And so this thing is moving forward in a way that some get frustrated with and watch. But we're out there, and we have an approach to this where we're not going to move a crowd into an area where it's going to cause additional problems, into the Civic Center or into the freeway. We're going to move them away where we think they can do the least damage, and we're going to try then and employ tactics that would minimize that even further.
How many businesses have been damaged and looted? I know their LAPD weather division had put out that there's some looting going on at 6th and Broadway. And as the National Guard, have they actually engaged with these protesters? No. Some media outlets were reporting that they were actually sending out tear gas, and I know on our channel we did not see that.
No, not that I'm aware of at all. That I'm aware of, there were at least 3 businesses that were broken into and property taken from them along Broadway and maybe other places. As far as the National Guard deploying anything other than around the federal building, I'm not aware of anything like that.
Right? Oh, headquarters damaged, correct?
Yeah, damaged, yeah. The whole Civic Center, there was significant damage as it relates particularly to graffiti, broken windows, that kind of thing.
Chief, any talk about a possible curfew at all? There had been some mention of that if things had continued at this point in the auto curfew.
Yeah, I know. We're always thinking about that. That's always a tool we can employ. We certainly hold that off and not wanting to do that. And this is a pretty isolated area where this is happening relative to the size of the city. So we would, if we were to use that, it would be done very judiciously.
All right, Chief, thanks.
All right. We'll be back. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, everyone. As I'm sure you are aware, there was a large protest this afternoon. Protests, and then also David Huerta, our esteemed labor leader in charge of SEIU, USWW, was released from custody this afternoon. So there was a rally around City Hall that ended up at the Federal Building. It was peaceful. It's my understanding that there's a few hundred individuals that are at the Federal Building now, but that there is no reports of violence that have taken place today or of vandalism. Of course, with the crowd just there, we will worry as it gets dark as to whether or not there are problems, but we certainly hope that there will not be. I just want to say I started off my morning with a meeting with a number of the leaders from the immigrant rights organizations. And as far as we know right now, there have been 5 raids by ICE throughout the region. I don't know. I know of at least 1 or 2 that took place in the city, but we're still compiling that information. As you know, ICE does not tell anybody where they're going to go or when they're going to be there. But I think the thing that was most important about the meeting today was listening to the stories of the people. For example, there was a woman, a mother from Guatemala, who was looking for her husband. She wasn't able to hear about her husband and son that were detained at the Ambiance warehouse. She's not been able to locate him or to communicate with him, and for the most part, the people that have been detained have been denied access to legal representation. This is unprecedented. In the past, when there were raids, lawyers were able to go in and meet with their clients. So she's running around the area trying to find her husband, not knowing if he's here, has he been taken to another city, has he been deported out of the country. There was another statement regarding a daughter who was searching for her detained father, and at a certain point she actually saw him moving into a detention facility, but since then, as far as she knows, he has disappeared. She is not able to find out where he is. I can't emphasize enough the level of fear and terror that is in Angelenos right now, not knowing if tomorrow or tonight it might be where they live, it might be their workplace. Should you send your kids to school? Should you go to work? And you remember this from several years ago, this same type of fear that was going around. But I heard today about something that is so over the top. Can you imagine having your annual appointment to ICE, your annual appointment? You're here, you might not be a citizen, but you have papers, and you are told that you need to go to the facility to check in. And then you are detained, and you go with your family and your kids, and the whole family is detained when you were legal and you were trying to maintain your legal status. So what this means then is that people are going to be afraid to maintain their appointments, which then pushes them into the closet, and they will fall out of status and then subject to arrests. This is the kind of thing that is happening in our city right now, and I will just take you back to last Thursday. Last Thursday, there was nothing happening in this town that called for the raids that took place on Friday. Nothing was happening. Nothing warranted the raids. If you remember at the beginning of this administration, we were told that raids would be to look for violent criminals, people who had warrants. But I don't know how you go from a drug dealer to a Home Depot, to people's workplaces where they're just trying to make a living. At Home Depot, you have day laborers centers so that the people that are trying to seek work each and every day will have a place to be so that it doesn't interfere with the business. These are not the people that we were told were going to be detained. And it makes me feel like our city is actually a test case for what happens when the federal government moves in and takes the authority away from the state or away from local government. I don't think that our city should be used for an experiment to see what happens in the nation's second largest city. Well, maybe we can do this to other cities. And then I read a description of our city that was so troubling to me. A description of our city that says that we have been invaded and occupied by illegal aliens and criminals, and that now violent insurrectionist mobs are swarming and attacking our federal agents. I don't know if anybody has seen that happen, but I've not seen that happen. And obviously there has been violence, and the violence is unacceptable, and we can talk about that in a minute. But to describe our city as a migrant invasion, and that we need to put an end to the migrant riots, and to call on various secretaries of the administration to go after our city because we want order to be restored, the illegals will be expelled, and Los Angeles will be set free. How is this a description? This is a despicable description of our city. Our city needs to come together now and not accept this, not allow us to be divided. We are a city of immigrants, and we have always embraced that. And if you want to hit our economy, you scare people from going to work, because you know there are sectors of our economy in this city where immigrant labor is the majority of the workforce. So this is damaging. It's damaging to individuals, it's damaging to families, but it is also damaging to our economy. Now I want to talk for a few minutes about the violence and the vandalism that has happened after the protests. We are fortunate in our city to have a well-established institutions that promote and fight for the rights of immigrants. They have protests and rallies often, a couple of times a year, and they never devolve into violence. Well, these protests have, and what typically happens is a fringe element, many times not even connected to the major protests, takes the opportunity to create havoc and commit vandalism. And I will tell you, it infuriated me, but it also just saddened me to drive through downtown right now and to see the level of obscene graffiti all over buildings. And I just say that anybody that does that, don't come and say that you are supporting immigrant rights, the rights of immigrants. You can't possibly be supporting immigrants and vandalize our city. And understand that if you do that, and it is 100% unacceptable, you will be arrested, and it might not happen that day. So don't think because you went home that night that you are free. There's a lot of videotape, there's investigations that will take place, and you will be held accountable and frankly need to be separated from the people who are really fighting on behalf of our immigrant community. And we need to stop the raids. This should not be happening in our city. It is not warranted, and the only thing it does is contribute to chaos. This was chaos that was started at Washington, D.C. On Thursday, the city was peaceful. On Friday, it was not because of the intervention of the federal government. And it's, again, I don't think our city should be a test case, a laboratory. With that, I'm happy to open up for questions. Whoa, 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 whoa.
What's your reaction to the deployment of 700 Marines?
I mean, we didn't need the National Guard. Why on earth? What are they going to do? Do you know what the National Guard is doing now? They are guarding 2 buildings. They're guarding the federal building here in downtown, and they're guarding the federal building in Westwood. That's what they're doing. So they need Marines on top of it? I don't understand that. That's why I feel like we are part of an experiment that we did not ask to be a part of.
Have you been in contact with President Trump or anyone from the administration? And if you could speak to him, what would you say right now?
I would say stop the raids. Stop the raids, period. I would say give the power back to our governor. And if we need the National Guard, we can do it in their normal circumstances, which is the request is made local and the governor decides or not to grant that to our city.
And have you been in contact with the administration?
I have been in contact with the administration, not the president.
Right here in the stripes and then Robert. You touched on it lightly, but has the National Guard contributed in any meaningful way in crowd control in the past 2 years?
No. The National Guard is guarding the federal building. Now, there was an incident that I saw where there were vehicles that needed to get into the federal building, and so the National Guard cleared the area, and that's where I saw gas, that's where I saw, the flashbangs.
Robert and then Liz.
Mayor Bass, when it comes to the people that you're talking about right now on the streets of Los Angeles that are being looked at worldwide, what are your sources on the ground telling you in terms of, are the people there with a message regarding immigration being now outnumbered and possibly outrun by these vandals, as you're calling them?
No, I don't believe so at all. I mean, when you see their numbers, it's when everybody's left. So the crowd could be thousands. And then late at night, by the time you see their numbers, you might see 100 or so. So they're not being outnumbered. And I don't know of anybody that identifies with them. In other words, they're part of our organization or they're not. The flyer that was out for the rally on Saturday night was a flyer that had no organizational affiliation. So we don't know what it is. I mean, it could be like what happens with the illegal parties, where people, put out a word and on social media it draws a crowd.
I think a lot of people in this city agrees with you, and I'm sure appreciate you speaking up for them. I'm wondering, would it be more powerful if, they got a chance to be lawyered up, to fight back against the fact that they're being detained potentially against their violating their civil rights? Is there anything that you can talk about providing legal representation? For example, the city of LA just approved a budget with money for legal representation for immigrants. And so and that felt like an uphill battle, and more probably maybe needed. Is there anything that you can say about what can be done about, posting bail, about like...
Let me just say that the immigrant rights organizations that have existed here for a long time are providing that type of support. I cannot see a possibility of the city of Los Angeles bailing people out with city funds. Whether or not there are resources to legal services, typically what that is a contract with an organization to do that work. We have those contracts. I don't have any reason to believe that they would end.
But would it help negate what Trump is trying to do? Trying to deport people, like in a very indiscriminate fashion, seemingly.
Right. It will help to negate it when people have legal help. Yes?
Mayor, if I may, you talked about how you're in communication with the White House.
I was.
You were. And in terms of, the budgetary problems that you're facing, has a part of that conversation been about reimbursing the city for law enforcement overtime?
No, let me just tell you that my conversations with the administration was before the deployment of the National Guard. I was trying to make the case that the National Guard was not needed here. I was trying to make the case that if the National Guard came here, it would be a provocative move, and it would be like a deliberate attempt to create disorder and chaos in our city. It was very predictable what was going to happen here, and it was completely unnecessary. This was a solution in search of a problem, and the problem was not happening on Thursday.
We're going to go here and then we'll leave.
When it comes to the solutions, the administration has claimed that there's a lack of transparency when it comes to what they know. Have you considered...
What they know? What are they looking for?
Well, there's been released information when it comes to potential ICE raids. And
Oh.
When it comes to working with them, would you be considered to give them a list of the violent criminals to particularly focus on the ones who they should be focusing on?
I mean, I don't have that list, and I don't think our chief has that list. So to me, you would be talking about federal warrants, which means the federal government would have the list of violent federal criminals.
Mayor, hi. It appears that this is going to continue from all the representatives we talked to on the congressional level, 30 days. So what can then we expect? What can you tell both the immigrant population, the city population about what?
Well, let me just say, in terms of the immigrant population and other Angelinos, I'm going to do everything I can to keep people safe. And the population of all of Los Angeles needs to know that we will stand with them. We're not going to allow our city to be divided and picked apart. And but you know what you also described is who knows? Yes, maybe 30 days, maybe longer, maybe shorter. How many raids in a given day? Where are those raids going to take place? Who are they looking for? None of that is information that we know. And again, this kind of atmosphere, it creates a chaos in our city. People not sure whether they should go outside, whether they need to stay inside. We did not need this. There was nothing happening in the city that warranted what we're dealing with now.
Down in front, and then we're going to end.
Mayor, with the National Guard and now the Marines in town, is there any indication that they will take direction from their emergency management center?
They're the federal government, absolutely not. And I hear that the Marines are on the way. I don't know if they really are. You know, I know that there was a post from the administration congratulating the National Guard for bringing peace before they even arrived. They weren't even here. But they were being congratulated for solving the problem, coming in and saving the day that didn't need saving.
How are you getting information about who is coming in? I mean, a lot of us are getting it from Twitter. Is that where you're getting your
I'm getting it from you.
We're going to end right here.
Thank you.
Mayor Bass, I know you had mentioned that there were 5 raids in our area today, and one in the city. Do you have any more information about, where they occurred, especially here in the city?
No, the one I know of happens to be happened to have taken place at near my grandson's school, so I know of that one. But no, I don't know. Claudia Aragon is the director of our Office of Immigrant Affairs.
Yes, we are working closely with the Rapid Response Network, and we are getting the data with them. So as they compile that, they work with us, and as you know, it's very much ongoing. So usually we check back with them at the end of the day. So unfortunately, as it happens, they don't tell us, and it happens probably as we speak now. So we'll check back with them at the end of the day, and hopefully those numbers don't.
Because I think this here is, are they just willy-nilly, grabbing people?
Oh, do you want Claudia to come to the microphone?
Claudia,
Yes.
do you mind coming to the
Microphone.
And those 5 raids were from today?
Correct.
Okay.
And where was one by what school?
She said that one of them was near her grandson's school.
Like what part of
LA. But I think there was a question that
I guess the question is, so if there's 5 raids today, where, if you're not being able to pinpoint ahead of time, how do you then respond and or set up or get people prepared if there's going to be more?
Well, it's not necessarily about preparing them, per se, now. It's our office, along with our community partners, have been unfortunately preparing for this moment, previously, for decades, through the Know Your Rights campaign, as you all know, with the red cards. And doing those campaigns, you all have been working with these community partners for decades. And this is the moment that, a lot of them had been working with. This is the second time that this administration comes around. So unfortunately, a lot of these partners really just activated, this portfolio. And, this is what they know how to do pretty well. And it's not really about preparing them. It's about bringing back that particular part of their portfolio and educating them about their rights, and really having the element of the recently arrived part of the immigrant population with the migrant buses in our region, and really, with that integrated part of the community, and letting them know what the sanctuaries, region really means, and letting them know what their rights are, and and letting them know that we don't know when the rates are going to happen, and that's why it is important for them to know their rights, and for them to understand what their rights are, and to be prepared. And education is key, and that's really the only way they can air quote arm themselves, unfortunately.
Trula has a hotline that folks can call if they see a raid. Does the city have something similar where you all can kind
No.
of like?
No, and the Trila hotline is the Rapid Response Network, and so Trila is one of the leads for that, and a lot of the partners are that. And if you all don't know, the Rapid Response Network works is with the public. If they see anything, it's sort of like if you see something, say something, where anyone from the public can call the Rapid Response Network, and they can find it in the ACLU website as well. If anyone sees that they feel like it's something like, oh, might think that's like a DHS vehicle, they call and say, I think that's what it is. Any one of the partners that's trained to identify, they send someone out that can confirm that in fact is activity or an actual federal law enforcement vehicle, and they report it back to the network, and they do call back the caller and say, yes, that in fact is what you thought, or is not, and that's how they can confirm what it is, and that's how they count numbers, and that's how they report it back.
Yeah. Well, let me just say thank you very much for being here today. We'll be back here tomorrow. I am hopeful that the federal government will hear our plea, stop the raids. This is creating fear and chaos in our city, and it is unnecessary. And I hope that we will be heard because our city is trying to move forward. And I believe that the federal government should be supportive of us moving forward. Thank you very much.